The morning I walked out of Folsom Prison, the sun hit my face like a slap from a stranger. 12 years. 12 years I spent behind those walls for a crime I never committed. 12 years of watching the seasons change through barred windows while my family crumbled without me. My name is Walter Brennan. I am 63 years old, and this is the story of how I discovered that the real prison wasn't made of concrete and steel. It was made of blood and betrayal. I remember the day they put the handcuffs on me like it was yesterday. September 14th, 2011. I was the CEO of Brennan Construction, a company my father built from nothing, and I had grown into a $50 million empire. We built hospitals, schools, bridges. We employed 300 people in Sacramento. I had a wife named Dorothy, who loved me, a son named Michael, who worked by my side, and a brother named Raymond, who I trusted with my life. That trust was my greatest mistake. The embezzlement charges came out of nowhere. $2 million missing from company accounts, and all the evidence pointed to me. Falsified signatures, doctored bank statements, a paper trail that led straight to my door. My lawyer said it was the most sophisticated frame job he had ever seen. The jury didn't care. They saw a rich man who got greedy, and they gave me 15 years. Dorothy visited me every week for the first 3 years. Then the visits became monthly, then quarterly. Then she stopped coming altogether. I got divorce papers in the mail on Christmas Eve, 2014. She wrote a note saying she couldn't wait anymore. She had met someone else, a man named Frank, who made her feel alive again. I understood. I hated it, but I understood. Prison has a way of erasing you from the world. You become a ghost while you're still breathing. Michael kept writing to me. Every single week, my son sent me letters. He told me about the company, about his wife Sarah, about my grandson Timothy, who was born 2 years after I went away. He sent me photographs. Timothy had my eyes, that same stubborn look that my father used to have. Then, 3 years ago, Michael's letters stopped. I wrote to him dozens of times. No response. I tried calling the house. The number was disconnected. I called the company. A secretary I didn't recognize said there was no Michael Brennan working there. When I asked to speak to Raymond, my brother, she put me on hold for 10 minutes before telling me Mr. Brennan was unavailable. Something was very wrong. I hired a private investigator with the little money I had saved. What he found made my blood run cold. Michael had been fired from the company 4 years ago. He and Sarah had divorced. He was living in a rundown apartment in Stockton, working at a warehouse for minimum wage. My grandson Timothy was with him, a 10-year-old boy who had never known anything but struggle. And Raymond? My dear brother Raymond was living in my house, driving my cars, running my company. He had somehow convinced the board that I had signed over power of attorney to him before my conviction. A document I never signed. A document that was as fake as the evidence that put me behind bars. I spent my remaining years in prison planning. Not revenge, justice. There's a difference. Revenge is hot and reckless. Justice is cold and precise. When I walked out of Folsom that morning, I had nothing but the clothes on my back and a bus ticket to Stockton. I had to see Michael first. I had to understand what had happened before I could fix it. The bus ride took 4 hours. I sat in the back, watching California roll by through dirty windows. The world had changed while I was gone. People stared at little screens in their hands. Buildings I remembered were gone, replaced by new ones I didn't recognize. I felt like a time traveler who had landed in the wrong decade. Stockton was worse than I remembered. The address the investigator had given me led to a neighborhood that made me sick. Broken fences, dead lawns, cars on blocks. My son, who had once lived in a 5-bedroom house in Granite Bay, was now in a place where I would have been afraid to walk after dark. I knocked on the door of apartment 4C, footsteps inside, a pause. Then the door opened, and I saw what 12 years of absence had done to my boy. Michael looked like he had aged 30 years. He was 42, but he could have passed for 60. His hair was gray and thin, his shoulders were hunched. His eyes had the hollow look of a man who had stopped hoping for anything good. "Dad," he said. Just that one word, Dad. And then he fell into my arms and sobbed like a child. We sat in his tiny kitchen while he told me everything. The coffee was weak and the chairs were broken, but I didn't care. I just listened. It started 6 months after I went to prison, Michael said. Uncle Raymond came to me with documents. He said you had signed everything over to him before the trial. He said it was to protect the company in case you were convicted. I didn't believe him at first, but the signatures looked exactly like yours. The lawyers verified them. I didn't know what to do. What happened next? I asked. Raymond said I could stay on as a regular employee. He promoted some of his own people to management. People I didn't know. They started squeezing me out, making my life hell, finding fault with everything I did. 3 years ago, they fired me for cause. Said I was stealing equipment. It was a lie, Dad. I never took anything. I know, son. I know. Michael wiped his eyes. Sarah couldn't take it anymore. We lost the house. We had to pull Timothy out of his private school. She said I was a failure. She said she didn't sign up for this life. She left and went back to Oregon. She sends Timothy a card on his birthday. That's it. Where is Timothy now? I asked. School. He's a good kid, Dad. Smart, but he's angry. He doesn't understand why his life is the way it is. He asks me why we're poor when other kids have everything. I don't know what to tell him. I reached across the table and took my son's hands. They were rough and calloused. The hands of a man who had been doing hard labor. I'm going to fix this, I said. How? Raymond has everything. He has lawyers, money, power. We have nothing. We have the truth. And we have something else he doesn't know about. What's that? Me. He thinks I'm a broken old man who just got out of prison. He thinks I'm going to crawl into a hole and disappear. He's wrong. I spent the next 3 weeks gathering information. I didn't go to Sacramento. I didn't announce my presence. I was a ghost, and ghosts don't knock on front doors. The private investigator was named Marcus Chen. He was 40 years old, a former cop who had left the force after getting shot in the line of duty. He had a limp, a drinking problem, and a hatred for corrupt rich people that made him perfect for my purposes. Your brother is a piece of work, Marcus said when we met at a diner in Elk Grove. He's been running Brennan Construction into the ground. Lots of cost-cutting, safety violations, corners being cut everywhere. The company is worth maybe half of what it was when you went away. What about the documents? The power of attorney? Marcus slid a folder across the table. I had a handwriting expert look at them. Off the record, of course. He says the signatures are very good forgeries, but they're definitely forgeries. There are microscopic differences in the pen pressure and stroke patterns. A good expert could prove it in court. What else? Your brother has a weak spot. His name is Kevin Walsh. He's the CFO that Raymond brought in to replace your people. Kevin handled all the dirty work, including setting you up. And Kevin has a gambling problem. He owes money to some very serious people. How much? $300,000. He's desperate. And desperate men make mistakes. I smiled. It was the first time I had smiled in 12 years. Finding Kevin Walsh wasn't difficult. He was a creature of habit. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, he went to an illegal poker game in a warehouse in West Sacramento. He drove a Mercedes that he couldn't afford and wore suits that were too expensive for a CFO of a struggling construction company. I watched him for 2 weeks. I learned his patterns. I learned that he was terrified of the men he owed money to. I learned that he drank too much and talked too loud when he was drunk. I learned that he had a wife and 2 kids who didn't know about his gambling or his debts. On the 3rd Tuesday, I approached him in the parking lot after the game. Kevin Walsh, I said. He spun around, his hand going to his jacket like he was reaching for a gun. When he saw me, an old man in cheap clothes, he relaxed. Who the hell are you? I'm Walter Brennan. I think you know my name. The color drained from his face. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Which, in a way, he had. You, he stammered. You're supposed to be in prison. I got out. Good behavior. 12 years of being a model prisoner. And now I'm back, Kevin. I'm back and I know everything. I don't know what you're talking about. The forged documents. The falsified evidence. The $2 million that Raymond actually stole and blamed on me. The signatures that you helped create. I know all of it. Kevin's hands were shaking. You can't prove anything. I can. I have a handwriting expert who will testify that the signatures are forgeries. I have bank records that show where the money really went. I have emails that Raymond thought he deleted but didn't. Technology is amazing these days, Kevin. Nothing ever really disappears. This was mostly a bluff. I had some evidence, but not as much as I was claiming. But Kevin didn't know that, and Kevin was desperate. What do you want? He asked. I want the truth. I want you to tell me everything that Raymond did, and I want you to put it in writing. I want you to testify if it comes to that. I can't do that. Raymond will destroy me. Raymond is going to destroy you anyway. It's only a matter of time before those men you owe money to get tired of waiting. $300,000, Kevin. That's a lot of money. How long do you think they're going to be patient? He stared at me. How do you know about that? I know everything. That's what 12 years in prison gave me. Time. Time to plan. Time to prepare. Time to find out exactly what happened while I was gone. Kevin was quiet for a long moment. If I help you, will you protect me? If you help me, I'll make sure you don't go to prison. That's more than Raymond will do for you when things fall apart. And they will fall apart, Kevin. The only question is whether you're on the winning side or the losing side when it happens. He broke, right there in that parking lot, with the smell of car exhaust and desperation in the air. Kevin Walsh told me everything. Raymond had been planning to steal the company for years. He had always resented our father for putting me in charge instead of him. He was the older brother, after all. He thought it should have been his. But Dad saw something in Raymond that I was too blind to see. A darkness. A willingness to do whatever it took to get what he wanted. The embezzlement was Raymond's idea. He had Kevin create false records, forge my signature, plant evidence. He had people on the inside, accountants and lawyers who were loyal to him. When the investigators came, everything pointed to me. And the worst part? Dorothy knew. My wife. My ex-wife. She knew what Raymond had done because Raymond told her. He had been having an affair with her for years before I went to prison. The man named Frank, who she had left me for, there was no Frank. It was Raymond. It had always been Raymond. I sat in my car after Kevin left, and I cried. Not loud, racking sobs, just quiet tears running down an old man's face. Dorothy had betrayed me. My brother had betrayed me. The life I thought I had, the family I thought loved me, it was all a lie. But the tears didn't last long. I had work to do. Getting Kevin's full confession took 3 more meetings. I recorded everything. I had him sign documents. I had him provide dates, names, amounts. I built a case that any prosecutor would drool over. But I wasn't going to the prosecutors. Not yet. First, I wanted to see my brother. Raymond still lived in my house. The house that my father had built in 1962. The house where I had grown up, gotten married, raised my son. It was a beautiful old Victorian in the Fab 40s neighborhood of Sacramento, worth over $2 million. I had made improvements over the years. A new kitchen, updated bathrooms, a pool in the backyard, where Michael used to swim as a boy. Now Raymond lived there with Dorothy. With my wife, in my house. I drove up to the house on a Sunday morning. I had dressed carefully, in the same cheap clothes I had worn when I got out of prison. I hadn't shaved in a week. I wanted to look like a broken man, a man who had given up. I wanted Raymond to underestimate me. The doorbell echoed through the house. I waited, my heart pounding. Footsteps. The door opened. Dorothy stood there, 12 years older but still beautiful in that cold, elegant way she had always had. She was wearing a silk robe and holding a cup of coffee. When she saw me, she dropped the cup. It shattered on the tile floor. Coffee splattered everywhere. Dorothy's face went white. "Walter," she whispered. "Hello, Dorothy. What are you doing here?" "I came to see my brother." "And my house? This is still my house, isn't it? Or have you managed to steal that too?" Raymond appeared behind her. He had gotten fat. Success and stolen money will do that to a man. His hair was thin, his face was soft, and his eyes had that same calculating look they had always had. The look of a predator. "Walter," he said smoothly. What a surprise. I heard you were getting out, but I didn't expect you to show up here. Where else would I go? This is my home. Was your home? Things have changed, little brother. I'm afraid you're not welcome here anymore. I let my shoulders slump. I put on my best defeated expression. Raymond, please. I just got out of prison. I have nothing. No money, no place to stay, nothing. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to talk. Dorothy started to say something, but Raymond cut her off. Let him in, he said. I want to hear what he has to say. They led me into the living room. My living room. The furniture had been changed, the artwork replaced, but I could still see the bones of the home I remembered. The fireplace where Michael had hung his stocking at Christmas. The window seat where I used to read the newspaper on Sunday mornings. The corner where Dorothy and I had put our first Christmas tree. All of it taken from me. So, Raymond said, settling into a leather chair that probably cost more than Michael made in a month. What do you want, Walter? I just want to understand, I said quietly. I want to understand what happened. The company, the evidence, everything. I had a lot of time to think in prison, and none of it made sense to me. Raymond smiled. It was the smile of a man who had won and knew it. What's to understand? You got greedy. You stole money from your own company. You got caught. I didn't steal anything, Raymond. The jury disagreed. The jury was shown false evidence. Forged documents. Manufactured proof. Raymond's smile faltered slightly. That's a serious accusation. I looked at Dorothy. She was sitting on the couch, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. And you knew, I said. You knew what he did, and you went along with it. You were sleeping with him while I was still your husband. How long, Dorothy? How long were you betraying me? She didn't answer. She just stared at the floor. Raymond stood up. I think you should leave, Walter. You're clearly delusional. Prison has damaged your mind. I've been collecting evidence, I said calmly. I have Kevin Walsh's full confession, signed, witnessed, and recorded. I have financial documents that trace the stolen money to accounts you control. I have emails you thought you deleted. I have enough to put you both in prison for the rest of your lives. The room went silent. Raymond's face turned red, then white. You're bluffing, he said. Am I? I pulled out my phone and pressed play on a recording. Kevin's voice filled the room. Raymond Brennan approached me in 2010 with a plan to frame his brother for embezzlement. I helped him create forged documents and false bank records. In exchange, he promised me the CFO position and a percentage of the profits. Everything I'm about to describe is the truth, and I'm providing this statement of my own free will. I let the recording play for another 30 seconds, then stopped it. There's 4 hours of that, I said. Names, dates, amounts, everything you did, laid out in detail. And Kevin isn't the only one I've found. You made a lot of enemies over the years, Raymond. People who were happy to talk once they knew someone was finally listening. Raymond looked at Dorothy. She looked at him. In that moment, I saw their relationship clearly for the first time. It wasn't love. It was partnership. Two people united by greed and guilt. What do you want? Raymond asked. His voice had lost its smoothness. Now he just sounded desperate. I want everything back. The company, the house, my reputation. I want you to sign a full confession and turn yourself in to the authorities. I want Dorothy to sign away any claim she has to my assets. And I want you both out of my life forever. That's insane. I'm not going to prison. Then I release everything to the media and the police. You'll still go to prison, but it'll be after a long, public, humiliating trial that destroys whatever reputation you have left. Every contractor, every politician, every business associate you've ever had will know exactly what you did. Raymond was breathing hard. He looked like a man watching his world collapse. I need time to think, he said. You have 48 hours. After that, I go public. I stood up and walked toward the door. At the threshold, I turned back. Oh, and Raymond? I've made copies of everything. They're with 3 different lawyers and 2 journalists. If anything happens to me, or to Michael, or to my grandson, everything goes public automatically. So don't even think about it. I left them there, standing in my living room, surrounded by all the things they had stolen from me. The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. I stayed with Michael and Timothy in their small apartment. I finally got to meet my grandson, this boy who had my eyes and my stubbornness and my father's determination. Timothy was wary of me at first. He knew I had been in prison. He knew that his life had fallen apart because of things connected to me. But over those 2 days, we talked. I told him stories about his great-grandfather, about building the company, about the house where his father had grown up. "He's trying to steal our story," Timothy said on the second night. "Uncle Raymond, he's trying to pretend like we don't exist." "That's exactly right," I said, "but stories are hard to steal. The truth has a way of coming out, eventually." "Is the truth going to come out now?" "I think so, buddy. I really think so." On the morning of the third day, my phone rang. It was Raymond's lawyer. They were ready to negotiate. The meeting took place at a neutral location, a conference room in a downtown office building. Raymond looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dorothy wasn't there. His lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit, did most of the talking. The negotiations were brutal. Raymond tried to bargain, to minimize what he would have to give up. His lawyer made threats about countersuits and defamation claims. I sat calmly through all of it, with Marcus Chen beside me taking notes. In the end, Raymond had no choice. The evidence was too overwhelming. Kevin Walsh had provided too many details. The forged documents couldn't withstand expert scrutiny. If it went to trial, Raymond would lose everything anyway, and he would spend the rest of his life in prison. We reached an agreement. Raymond would sign a full confession and cooperate with prosecutors. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he would plead guilty to fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. He would serve a minimum of 8 years in federal prison. Dorothy would divorce Raymond and renounce any claim to assets acquired during the marriage. She would also sign a statement admitting her knowledge of the fraud. In exchange for her cooperation, she would avoid criminal charges. All of my assets would be returned to me, including the company, the house, and all financial accounts. Michael would be reinstated as COO of Brennan Construction with back pay for the years he was wrongfully terminated. And Raymond would personally apologize to me, to Michael, and to Timothy, in writing and on video. Watching Raymond sign that confession was one of the sweetest moments of my life. His hand shook as he put pen to paper. When he looked up at me, I saw something I had never seen in his eyes before. Fear. Was it worth it? I asked him. 12 years ago, you had a brother who loved you and trusted you. You had a place in the family business. You had everything you could have wanted. Was destroying all of that worth it? He didn't answer. He just signed the papers and walked out. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. Raymond's arrest made the news. The story of how he had framed his own brother was covered by every major outlet in California. I gave interviews. I told my story. I made sure everyone knew the truth. Brennan Construction survived, barely. Raymond's mismanagement had left the company in bad shape, but there was still a core of good people who had stayed loyal to the Brennan name. With Michael back in charge and fresh investment from partners who believed in us, we started to rebuild. I moved back into my house. It felt strange at first, sleeping in rooms that had been occupied by my brother and my ex-wife. But slowly, I made it mine again. I took down the artwork that Dorothy had chosen and put up family photographs. I replaced the furniture that Raymond had bought with pieces that reminded me of my father, of my childhood, of better times. Timothy came to live with us. Michael and I agreed that the boy needed stability, needed family. He enrolled in a good school. He made friends. He started to smile again. Michael and I rebuilt our relationship. The years of separation had created distance between us, but blood is thicker than time. We worked side by side during the days and had dinner together at night. We talked about the past, about the future, about everything we had lost and everything we could still build. 1 year after I walked out of Folsom Prison, I stood on the balcony of my house and watched the sun set over Sacramento. Michael was downstairs, cooking dinner. Timothy was doing his homework at the kitchen table. The sounds of a family, a real family, drifted up to me through the open windows. I thought about all the years I had lost. 12 years of my life, stolen by my own brother. Years I would never get back. My son's wedding, my grandson's first steps, holidays and birthdays and ordinary Tuesday afternoons. All gone. But I also thought about what I had gained. The truth. Justice. A second chance to be a father and a grandfather. The knowledge that the people who had betrayed me had paid for their crimes. Raymond was in prison now. He would be there for at least 8 more years. Dorothy had disappeared somewhere, fled to another state to escape the shame. Kevin Walsh was cooperating with authorities in exchange for immunity. His gambling debts paid off, his family intact but forever changed. And I was here. 64 years old, standing in my own home, surrounded by the people I loved. The past was painful. It always would be. But the future was mine to write. Timothy's voice called up from below. "Grandpa, dinner's ready." I turned away from the sunset and went downstairs to join my family. The story wasn't over. It never really is. Raymond would get out someday, and there would always be people who believed his version of events. The company faced years of hard work to return to its former glory. Timothy would have questions as he got older, difficult questions about family and betrayal and forgiveness. But none of that mattered in this moment. What mattered was the smell of Michael's cooking, the sound of Timothy's laughter, the warmth of a house that was finally a home again. I had lost 12 years, but I had eternity in front of me, and I intended to make every day count. If you're watching this, and you've been wronged by someone you trusted, I want you to know something. Justice is possible. It takes patience. It takes planning. It takes the courage to keep fighting, even when everything seems lost. But it's possible. My brother thought he had won. He thought that money and power and fake documents would protect him forever. He was wrong. The truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you try to bury it. I am Walter Brennan. I spent 12 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit. My brother stole my company, my house, and my wife. He tried to destroy my son and my grandson. He failed. And if anyone watching this is facing a similar battle, take heart. Keep fighting. Keep gathering evidence. Keep believing in justice. Because in the end, the truth always wins. Always.